and good afternoon. It is Friday, and today we're going to be talking about oxalates. Now, oxalates are a compound that are found in foods, but they are also compounds that our body makes. So we want to eat good food. Good food has oxalates. When our body's working correctly, we make oxalates. However, oxalates can be a problem. So this is something that's not well understood. This is something that we're going to talk about some conditions an overload on oxalates can trigger. And also our lifestyle can trigger us to not process oxalates appropriately. So this is going to be kind of geeky as far as I'm going to give you some information, and then you're going to have to kind of figure out how that applies to you. It's a really long report. I'm not sure how much I'll get through it today, but I'm going to try and be a little creative with it and see if we can just get the needed information and not just bog you down with a lot of research and that kind of thing. So how do you know if you have oxalate overload? Well, there's several health conditions that point to that. Cardiomyopathy, crystal deposits that result in arrhythmia, palpitations, dyspnea, and in rare instances, chest pain, according to a 2023 article in Current Rheumatology Reports. Chronic pain, disposition in the bone, nerves, and muscle cells can cause pain, according to a 2013 article in Current Rheumatology Reports. Visual disturbances, crystal deposits in the retina can lead to vision issues, including glaucoma, cataracts, retinal detachment, white flecks or spots, according to a 1980 study in the British Journal of Ophthalmology. Arthritis. Oxalate crystals can deposit in your joints, causing pain and stiffness like arthritis. In some cases, this can also lead to a different condition called oxalate arthritis. Digestive issues. Oxalates can irritate the lining of the digestive tract, potentially contributing to leaky gut syndrome and other gastrointestinal problems. Now, we see a lot of people with leaky gut syndrome. We see a lot of people with IBS and Crohn's, and both of these situations can be a result of too much oxalates in the system. Autoimmunity. Oxalate crystals can trigger inflammation, which could contribute to autoimmune conditions. For example, higher levels of oxalate has been detected in people with celiac disease, according to an article published in 2016 in the Journal of Gluten Sensitivity. Now, I've had a couple of people come in this week wanting to be tested for gluten sensitivity, and it's like, you know what, everybody is sensitive to gluten because of the way our country processes our grain. So that may change with the new administration, I don't know, but all of our grains here in the United States are sprayed twice with glyphosate, which causes contamination in the grain, and then when we eat the grain, we become inflamed because of the heavy metal chemical toxicity. And so for all of us here in the United States, the grains are not a good deal, even though they are on a whole food diet. And if you live in Europe or other countries, you don't have that problem. But here in the United States, we do have that problem. Now, a lot of people try to address their health issues by eating healthy, all right? And so when you're trying to eat healthy, if other things are not in place, you can have some big problems with that. And we're going to talk about a case study of a lady who did just that. She was eating very, very well, but it was killing her. And so this is not a license not to eat well. We need to eat well, but we need to understand that our lifestyle choices also are problems. So oxalates are naturally occurring compounds found in many plant-based foods, such as leafy greens, seeds, nuts, and some fruits. We also produce them. Oxalates have sparked interest and debate in nutritional circles for a long time. They help plants protect themselves and regulate their minerals. They may undermine human health in ways that we don't fully understand. Scientists have yet to determine the specific need for oxalates, but because our body produces oxalates, we know that they have some reason, they have some use, we just don't know what it is. So for most people, eating oxalate-rich foods as part of a balanced diet does not appear to cause any kind of problems. However, there is mounting evidence that suggests that some people, particularly those with certain genetic predispositions or gut issues, can be at higher risk if they eat too many oxalates. So part of the issue that they're finding out is the problem may not be necessarily the food, but the problem could be what else we are eating. Year-round access to oxalate foods, used to, whatever was in season is what we would eat, and therefore we wouldn't have leafy greens all the time. We wouldn't have fruits all the time, depending on the season. But now the way our industry is, we can have whatever we want anytime we want because it's just available year-round. So having the availability of oxalate foods year-round could help us to overconsume oxalate foods, and this overconsumption is added to processed food, seed oil, chronic stress, gastrointestinal dysbiosis may contribute to an increased susceptibility to oxalated-related diseases. So what is gut dysbiosis? Well, anything that's is not working correctly, dysfunction, okay, destroy, all those kind of things. So dysbiosis, and biosis means life. Life is not functioning properly. And so what this specifically refers to is your probiotic, prebiotic, postbiotic in your gastrointestinal tract. So when we are living with a lot of stress, we destroy a lot of the beneficial microbes that we have. And we're going to learn in this report that these beneficial microbes help process the oxalate so that these crystals are not deposited in our system. And so we want to make sure that we can do what we can do so that we're able to protect ourselves and we won't have all the problems that some people are having. So eating processed foods, which we all know is a no-no. Cooking our foods in seed oil is a big no-no. But when you go to the grocery stores, you see people in their cart, they've got Crisco, they've got safflower oil, they've got corn oil, and they've got canola oil, right? None of these things should be consumed because they are all toxic to our situation. So we're not labeling oxalate foods as toxic. It's more appropriate to say if you don't have a good foundation, if your gut is not right, then you may have some problem processing oxalate foods. So there was this lady called Sally Norton. She was a nutritional science graduate from Cornell University. She experienced many health issues for more than 3 decades, 30 years, all while she was adhering to a healthy diet. I was eating tons of vegetables, tons of leafy greens, tons of nuts. I was making myself sicker and sicker. Her symptoms included chronic pain, digestive issues, thyroid dysfunction, arthritis, tendinitis, thin skin, and debilitating fatigue. Despite trying countless treatments from physical therapy to surgery, now that's pretty drastic, her condition deteriorated until she was struggling to read and she had to give up her job. Now, this is a lady doing all the right things. She's eating well, she's eating healthy, she's doing all the right things, and yet her health is suffering. She made one dietary change, and that was eliminating oxalates from her diet, and her health dramatically turned around. She says, within a few days, my sleep improved. Within weeks, my joint pain decreased significantly. My cognitive function returned, and I was able to return to work and enjoy life as normal. So her journey reminds us that even seemingly healthy foods can sometimes be the root of health challenges. So don't just think that because you're eating healthy foods that they are actually healthy for you. There may be some kind of modification that you need to do. So oxalates is oxalic acid, and it's made from vitamin C, which breaks down into oxalose citrate and glycoxylate. When these acids bind with minerals such as calcium, potassium, and magnesium, then you get oxalates. Oxalates are crystals in your body that your body is not able to break down because of other issues. So in plants, oxalic acids and oxalate crystals serve various roles in growth, pH regulation, protection from excess calcium, photosynthesis, and detoxification of heavy metals, according to a 2023 review in the journal Foods. In humans, however, the effects of oxalates is much more nuanced. Oxalates are considered anti-nutrients because they can interfere with the absorption of essential minerals such as calcium, iron, and magnesium. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with this definition because oxalates occur in naturally occurring food that is put on the planet for us to consume. So it's not necessarily that there's something wrong with the food. It's moreover, we don't have the digestive integrity to be able to process these foods, and we're also putting other things in the body that is causing the oxalates to create a problem, all right? Oxalates are primarily removed through the urine. However, when renal clearance is insufficient, oxalates can accumulate and form crystals. So we've all heard of kidney stones, we've all heard of gallstones and that kind of thing. So some of the things that we are doing, anecdotally, I have heard from several people who have had kidney stones that they drink a lot of energy drinks. And these energy drinks are causing these stones. And so if you're prone to kidney stones, if you're prone to gallstones, your doctor is going to tell you to avoid green leafy foods because of the oxalates that are in them. Now, as a healthcare practitioner, I know that nuts are good for you, seeds are good for you, green plants are good for you. There's something else at work if you are making stones. So the problem with this is a loss of oxalate degrading bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract can also contribute to higher oxalate levels, according to a 2021 review in Applied Environmental Microbiology. So there's a lot of things that we are doing to ourselves, right, that are causing us to have too many oxalates in our system, which is causing us to have the problems that I just mentioned. As I said earlier, the crystals can collect in various parts of the body: the heart, your skin, your joints, your bones, and your eyes, according to a 2013 study in Current Rheumatology Reports. So what we want to do is make sure that our environment is good and we're not having this kind of problems. So oxalates might be somewhat analogous to ammonia. Now, ammonia has a very important functional purpose. It's normal to have some ammonia in your body. But if the ammonia rises beyond a certain threshold, it becomes neurotoxic and it causes fatigue and brain fog. Oxalates may be similar, says Chris Masterjohn, who is an independent researcher with a doctorate in nutritional sciences. So the key may be to achieve a balance between oxidate production and oxidate removal. So oxalate is something we mostly synthesize when the ideal operation of our enzymes is not working up to their capacity. So I'm going to give you a little biology lesson right here. Here in the United States, we have something called the Standard American Diet. And when you take those letters and you put them together, it's SAD. And in fact, it is a sad diet. It is too full of processed foods. It is too full of foods that aren't really foods. Your sugar-free food, your fat-free foods, all of those foods that have been changed chemically in order to pull out whatever they don't want in there, and what you end up getting is non-food foods. So those of you that have known me for a long time know that back in the day, my late husband and I traveled and we lived in Europe and all those kind of great things. And so when we moved back to the United States, there was this wonderful chocolatey fudge cookie that was fat-free. And I think it was sugar-free too. And it tasted like heaven. Of course, that was before I knew all the things that I know now. And so I would buy them, I would buy boxes of them because it satisfied my sugar craving. It satisfied my chocolate craving. And so I would eat these little cookies. And so because they were processed foods, they weren't real foods, it caused such a drain on my enzymes. Now, your pancreas produces enzymes, but because we have the standard American diet, this SAD diet, we probably use up all of our natural enzymes by the time we are 30. So just like a female has a limited number of eggs in her ovaries, and once she hits menopause, she's done. It's just done, right? Well, the same thing with your pancreatic enzymes. Once you've used them, you're done. Now, food that is live, so salads and fruits and raw vegetables and that kind of thing, those have their own enzymes in there. And so when you consume those raw or barely cooked, you are eating enzymes. But most of us don't do that. I remember when I was in my 30s and one of my friends was talking to me about a raw diet, and I just looked at her and I said, I like my food cooked. And she just kind of laughed at me. And of course, what she was telling me was truth, but I didn't have the understanding to be able to cooperate with her. And so I'm a lot smarter now. And so that's why we want to tell you these things so that you can be smarter too. So when we are in the standard American diet, we use up all of our enzymes. And so by the time we're 30, we need to supplement with enzymes, because if we don't have that bacteria that breaks down those oxalates. And so we can start to have tummy trouble. And we do know that people, as they get older, they have more and more digestive disturbances because of just the way the body works. So we're under stress, we're killing our probiotics. We are drinking chlorinated water, which kills our probiotics. We are ingesting fluoride in our water. We're bathing in chlorinated water, all of which depletes our probiotics. We are under stress, tremendous stress, all which disrupts our microbiome. And so when we are doing those things, we have to supplement with the appropriate enzymes. Otherwise, we're going to have an oxalate overload. And then you've got all the things that we've talked about earlier. So we want to make sure that if we're over 30, that we make sure that we have digestive enzymes at every meal. Now, if you have a piece of fruit, as I said earlier, it has its own enzymes in it, so you're good. If you have a salad, it's got its own enzymes in it, so it's good. But if you're having that steak and baked potato, which is one of my favorite meals, I'm going to need to have enzymes because I'm going to need to process that food so I can absorb those nutrients. And if I don't do enzymes, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have oxalate overproduction, and then I'm going to be prone to all those things we talked about earlier. Master John says it shouldn't be the goal to ensure that the body never makes any oxalates. We don't want it being synthesized at a rate that is higher than what we can get rid of, because at some point it rises above the threshold and it causes toxicity. And at a slightly higher point, it crosses the threshold and leads to crystallization. So if you keep your probiotics good, if you keep your enzymes healthy, then you're not probably going to have a problem with oxalates. Because if you're doing that, you're doing your probiotics and you're doing your enzymes, you're probably not doing seed oils and processed foods, right? Because if you're aware of what your body needs to be healthy, then you're also aware of things that you're eating that are not conducive to health. It says the impact of oxalates on health is potentially becoming more prominent due to the convergence of modern factors. So historically, high oxalate foods were only available seasonally. We talked about that. Also, early in our history, Americans cooked with animal fat, such as butter or lard, until the advent of vegetable oils in the 1900s. Today, the average American is consuming at least 1/4, and some people 1/3 of their diet is vegetable oils. Now, this is from what we're cooking with, but it's also what they're using in our processed foods. And so you're going to have to look at what you're eating. And I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because it's not my job to tell you what to eat. It's my job to understand the health ramifications of what you eat. So if you are like most average Americans, 1/4 and maybe a third of your diet is rancid seed oils that you're not able to process. So these vegetable oils, soybean, safflower, sunflower, can lead to oxidate production in the body. The Western diet is conducive to chronic diseases. And so even though as a nation here in America, we spend the most dollars on healthcare, we are by far down the ladder of healthy nations. You would think that with as much money as we spend, we would have great health, but in fact, it is just the opposite. I don't have those statistics with me today, but I have done a lunch and learn on that, and you can look at that. Okay. Vegetable oils are rich in a type of fatty acid called polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are highly vulnerable to a type of damage that occurs in the body called oxidation. Now, just so that you know, oxidation, we can liken it to rust. So when you take a metal and you don't take care of it and you leave it out in the elements and it rusts, we know that that's not a good thing, and we know that it weakens the metal, and sometimes we throw it away. Sometimes we can try and refinish it and that kind of thing. But this is exactly what happens in our bodies when we have oxidative stress. We start rusting from the inside out, and that's not what we want. And it's happening because of the seed oils that we are consuming. Americans consume roughly 23% of their diet from grains, according to the USDA Department of Agriculture, and their data says that wheat, barley, rye, teff, and brown rice are very high in oxalates. The whole grain generally contains higher amounts of oxidants than the refined grains, such as white flour and white rice, because oxalates are concentrated mostly in the bran. Now, as a healthcare professional, I want you to eat the whole grain. If you're going to eat grains, I want you to eat the whole grain, because the bran is where the fiber is, and the fiber helps keep you healthy. However, go back to about 20 minutes ago, and I was talking to you about glyphosate. In the United States, unless you get a grain that is 100% organic, and even then, you can have trouble with glyphosate just because of chemtrails and all that kind of stuff. Your ground is being contaminated. And so when you are eating these grains, you are getting high oxalate foods in your diet. High doses of vitamin C supplements can also increase oxalate levels in some people, according to a 2003 clinical trial. Now, I want to just tell you that in the United States, right, our vitamin C is made from genetically modified corn. Genetically modified corn is going to be high in oxalates because of the way it has been processed. And so if you're taking high doses of vitamin C, which we all need vitamin C. So I'm not saying don't take vitamin C. What I'm saying is find a vitamin C that is not made from genetically modified corn. So how do you know? Well, good question. I'm glad you asked that question. Genetically modified vitamin C is listed on the label as ascorbic acid. So if it's listed as vitamin C, right, you want to look on the ingredients. Does it say ascorbic acid, and is it made in the United States? There are a few brands that I have seen that do not have ascorbic acid in their labels. We get our vitamin C, and we absolutely recommend vitamin C because we don't make vitamin C. But we get our vitamin C from Canada, and we know that it is the good stuff. There are some American brands, but you're going to have to search few and far between. Now, there is an herb called rose hips. It's a liquid herb. It's a tincture. You can probably get it in a capsule as well, but it is 100% vitamin C, and it's not been genetically modified. So while the report says that high dosages of vitamin C causes oxalate issues, yes, because of the way vitamin C is produced in this country. If we have high doses of vitamin C, but it is not ascorbic acid, we may not find that. And that's not in this report, but that's my summation, knowing chemistry and knowing the way things are working in the body. And so when do we want high doses of vitamin C? We want high doses of vitamin C if we're chronically constipated. That'll take care of it. If we're fighting an infection, we're going to want to have between 4 and 6 grams of vitamin C to help flush whatever is in the body out of the body. And so you want to make sure that you're getting a good vitamin C and not something that's going to have oxalates in there. So there is an approximated number of 129 million Americans who have at least one major chronic disease, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Chronic disease can be increased with oxidative stress levels, which we believe promote the generation of more oxalates in the body. This is according to a 2012 article in Advances in Urology. Now, this is in the Urology Journal. Why? Because oxalates most often cause kidney stones. Kidney stones are extremely painful. Thank you, Jesus. I have not had them, but I do not eat seed oils. I do not consume overly an abundance of leafy vegetables. I do eat leafy vegetables, but I don't do it in an overabundance. And I do not eat very many processed foods. So I'm very mindful of that. And because of that, thank you, Jesus, I have not had kidney stones. So what else causes problems? Processed food, antibiotic overuse, and chronic stress reduce your microbiome diversity, according to the experts, and it leads to imbalance in the gut microbiota, increasing oxalate levels, according to a 2021 article in Best Practice and Clinical Research for Endocrinology and Metabolism. So let's talk about antibiotic use. I have not had antibiotics in almost 20 years. All right. However, when we eat out, when we eat processed food, where we're not mindful, we're getting antibiotics in our dairy products, we're getting antibiotics in our poultry, and we're getting antibiotics in our meat. This is why it's so important to go for organic, because organic takes out the antibiotics and takes out the hormones that the food industry here in the United States uses in our production to make the animals get fatter faster. All right. And I understand why they're doing that. They're trying to, get their animal fat, take it to the butcher shop, get their money, and start the process all over again. I get that. However, when we do that, we mess up our gut microbiome, and then we have the opportunity to become very, very sick. And this is what we do not want. So according to Master John, some people have a genetic mutation that increases their tendency to produce oxalate, while others without the mutation can still be sensitive. Factors that may show that you are susceptible, okay, is a history of repeated antibiotic use or kidney stones, digestive disorders such as Crohn's disease or leaky gut syndrome, genetic predisposition to oxalate sensitivity, bariatric surgery. Now, if you don't know what bariatric surgery is, this is a surgery that people do when they are very frustrated because they have such a hard time losing weight that they'll go in and will have these surgery procedures where they alter the organ of the stomach. Now, sometimes they put a band, sometimes they cut some off, they do all different kinds of things. There's different things. But when they do that, it limits your ability to process foods the way you need to be processing foods. And so if that is you, I really need to help you, because you're not going to be able to get what you need in your food, and you're going to be able to have more of a tendency to overproduce oxalates, which leads to all the different kinds of infections. Certain nutrient deficiencies, such as vitamin B6. Almost everybody is deficient in vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 feeds your adrenals. Your adrenals produce cortisol and adrenaline and all those kind of things that help us when we are in fight or flight mode. We don't want to be in fight or flight mode unless the saber-toothed tiger is chasing us. However, in the way we live today, we always are being chased by something. And so almost all of us stay in sympathetic dominance. We need to be mindful. And when all that is going on, our immune system is shutting down. Our probiotics are shutting down. We're producing more cortisol. And then we're having all of these issues. And vitamin B6 nourishes the adrenals, and almost everybody is deficient in these. B vitamins are water soluble. You do not store them. And so if you are not taking a good multivitamin, you're going to be having some trouble in this area. Chronic yeast and fungal infections, okay? If you have toenail fungus, if you have nail fungus, you have a systemic mold fungus issue, and all of this will cause you to have more problems with oxalates. And then, of course, if you have a diet high in oxalate rich foods, then you're going to have a problem. So how do you know if you have oxalates? Well, there is urinary oxalate testing that you can do. There's gut bacteria composition testing that identifies if you have the right bacteria in your gut. And if you don't have that bacteria that eats up those oxalates. All right. So there's that kind of testing. There's nutritional deficit testing. There's yeast and fungal testing. And we can do all of that here at the clinic. We can get you to the right lab. We can give you some recommendations on what you need to do on that. So what can you do to prevent overproducing oxalates? Well, first of all, you correct your nutritional deficits, making sure you have a lot of your B vitamins. You do not cook or consume high oxalate foods. Now, if you have to, and I'm going to give you a caveat on this, the report says boiling your leafy vegetables removes some of the oxalates. It does, but it also removes your nutrients. So we don't really recommend that you boil anything. So just throwing that out there from a nutritional perspective. Stay hydrated. Adequate water intake can help prevent the crystal formation of the oxalates. Support your gastrointestinal health. Balance your diet, eliminate your seed oils, and then increase your calcium and magnesium intake. So these are some things you can Google a list of high oxalate foods, and you can put that on your Let's Eat Sparingly. And then you can Google your low oxalate producing foods, and you can eat more of those. And what that's going to help you do is to have a more balanced diet. If you eat a lot of processed foods, if you use seed oils, those are things that you can quit today. And I would really encourage you to quit today. When you have high oxalate issues, you have a really high chance of having a chronic disease. If you have a chronic disease, you're really, really close to going over into autoimmunity, and then your immune system is confused, and then you just don't have a great life. So that was a whole lot of information. And if you have any questions, put them in the box. Thank you guys for joining me. I see you. I see your little sunshiny faces, and I appreciate the time. I'm honored that you spend your time. It's the weekend. Rest, recover, rejuvenate. Be mindful of what you're eating, and I will see you next week.